Okay, it's 5 o'clock, guys. We're gonna go ahead and call our work session to order. I wanna, go ahead and invite the department heads or anybody who's here, representing the department. If you have a nameplate at the table, could you please come and, sit at the table so that way you can be heard. If you have any questions, we're able to, hear you clearly and answer them. Alright. I know I see we have a few department heads in the audience, but I guess nobody wants to come up and, sit at the table.
The library supervisor.
Thanks, guys. All right, Councilman Fowler, would you mind opening us up in prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us get out of here today. May we bless you and just let your light shine through our actions. Be with us as we go from here. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Councilman Fowler. All right, so we'll jump right into it. Number one, we have discussion led by Mike Weststone, Building Services Director, regarding marble panel repairs at Isabel Anderson Coleman Museum and Art Center.
Cole and the director wanted me to just come let you know what was going on. The marble, as you know, we had issues with it on the front of the building that was coming loose. They had an engineer and the architectural firm came out and make a recommended fix for it. The cost is in front of you. It's just informational. Really, the money was already approved when it was initially bid for issues that come up like this. If you read it closely though, there's not a warranty on this because this is what they call non-conforming construction, which means that you can't afford to fix it right, essentially.
Is that because the building's so old?
Correct, and there's no really way to put back what's there. And
Yes, sir.
you're probably not gonna go to the quarry and get any more of it, so this is the best solution.
Okay.
How long will it take them once they start, you think?
Probably just a few days.
Okay.
And this is your recommendation that we move forward with this, right, Mike?
Well, that's really the only choice, or either just take it off.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any more questions on this? All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, number two, discussion led by Jane McGee, Human Resource Specialist, regarding the social media policy for employees and elected officials. Hey, Jane. I know you gave it to us, last time and we, took it home. I don't know if everybody had a chance to, go over it.
And she sent that bid.
Yeah, so,
Do you have any questions?
I think Nate has some.
I've got just a couple, Ms. Jane. When it speaks of designee that will approve approve what you're posting, who would that designee be? Would that be the department head of that department?
It could be, I mean, it's kind of an open-ended question at this point, you know, I mean, it could be anybody.
What would you recommend it be, Jane?
Probably department head,
Okay, okay, all right, I got you.
and that's just what it means and whoever's appointed. or-
So do we need to specifically list that in there, to say that it's up to the department head?
We could.
Okay, all right. What else, Nate?
All right, if they violate this policy, then what? Is there something in the handbook that, or you have to add something to the handbook?
Well, that's an interesting topic, because it's gonna be kind of a challenge to hold them accountable. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna take a lot of, you know, for example, you posted something on social media that was derogatory toward the city, you were employed. Good question, who is gonna be responsible? Is it the department head? Who saw it? Who reported it? What do we, you know, and it's just gotta follow through. So yes, your question, we would have to put something in the handbook, because we've never had a social media policy.
Well, maybe we should, I mean, because there's no point in putting this in place if there's not gonna be any, consequences for not
I agree.
abiding by it. And, I mean, it's not gonna be like it's hearsay. I mean,
Yeah,
now we're in the day and age of
This is just the initial
screenshots.
policy that y'all wanted. I mean, we haven't gotten that far into it yet, so. But you're right, you gotta have some accountability, otherwise why would you have a policy?
Yes, ma'am. In one of the sections, Ms. Jane, it talks about and expresses that written permission to post in section B, item number 8, that you have to get permission to post since the department head is the designee, then that's who they will get the permission from, correct?
Yes.
Okay, would that be just a one-time deal, or be every time that they needed to post something?
I think you could give the department head purview on that. It depends on, you know, who the employee is. I would, if it was me, I would probably want to know what it was gonna be before they post.
Sure, because it affects your department, and
Yeah.
you are the department
That's
head.
what I would do.
I got you. So, but we're clear that the designee probably more likely gonna be the department head, him or herself. That would
Yes.
take. Okay. I got you.
All
And,
right.
and we don't, there's no sense in us getting a third party, because the department head can determine if it's right or wrong, then go to the mayor, then take action by the handbook, whatever that action may be.
Correct, and he probably just put that in there because he does this for larger cities too, all sizes, so, you know.
And if it's a department head, I guess the mayor would
Yeah.
decide where, okay, all right.
And one more question, I'm gonna be done.
Okay.
In section 5, this talks about personal use of the social media policy. I think it's item number 4 or 5, I really don't know, I was trying to get this down real quick today.
Okay.
It's talking about using a city logo on your personal page to identify yourself. And I was a little, now I am concerned
Yeah, let me,
about that.
You're talking about for the employee, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Give me that page number.
It's section 5.
What page?
I don't know what page, Miss Jane, I just remember it's in section 5, and it's item number 3. I think the elected officials policy, I think it's great. He done real good on it. I mean, it's very to the point, and it's exactly the way it needs to be.
Nate, I'm sorry, I'm just not finding it. You think it's on page 4? But, no, you said it was 5?
Just, well, I labeled it as section 5. It may not be section 5, but it's talking about
Let me just
authorization
come look,
prior
if
using.
you don't mind. I'll find the one with logo and we'll get that.
Okay, just email it to me. That'd be
No
fine.
problem.
Just because the way I'm reading it, and I may be reading it wrong, Ms. Jane, because it's saying it wants you to use the city logo to identify you on your personal page that you work for the city of Sylacauga. That's the way I read it.
Without reading it, my comment would be, you probably want to get permission for that too, because, you know, they're representing the
Okay.
city, you know,
I
so
got you.
I wouldn't be too cool with just anybody doing it.
I found it.
I got you. You got it for me?
Good job, Jane.
Page,
Ashley found it.
Page 7,
Okay. Thanks.
number 3, display of city logos.
Yes, that's it. I draw the blank.
Is page 7 what number?
3.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the way it reads, I mean, it doesn't sound like he's indicating that would be probably not the best thing to do.
Right.
So,
I got you. Now, have the employees seen this yet? Will they
they're
get
not gonna say
feedback?
anything till y'all approve it. I mean, they haven't seen it, we hadn't posted it, so if you're good with it, I can post it.
All right, but we still need to, before we can do that, we still need to, I guess designate the people who are gonna monitor it, like add that in there, and also we need to say what the accountability is going to be if violated.
Yes.
And Lee has 3 questions.
I thought it was beautiful, very well done on both of them.
Okay.
Is this a model of anything that's being used anywhere else, or did he write it just for you?
He tailored it to us. Now, I've not seen any of his work for any other municipalities, but this is his niche, you know, this is his thing. So,
Well, very well done. My only questions are we creating any obligation for employees to disclose that they have personal social media accounts where they might occasionally talk about the city, and if they don't do that, is there a problem? Because you're not gonna be able to monitor it unless you know to look for it if you're planning to monitor it.
Personally, that sounds invasive. If you want me to pass that along to Mark and get an opinion, I can.
I'm just curious because it might be an opportunity. All of this might be creating an opportunity, an obligation for the city to monitor things.
Yes.
With the presumption that an employee is going to occasionally talk about the city. And we don't want to create that, but just a thought.
Well, and like with Bluebell, you know, anytime you tag, mention, share Bluebell, they get a notification about it. It's bad, you're gonna get called in the office, from your personal page, you know.
Okay. Well, it just depends on how New Caledonia deal with that. It's a small town, it's pretty transparent, everybody knows what's going on.
In my opinion, as long as you're not bringing a negative light to your department, city hall, or this town, I mean,
And my only other comment was that we ought to let the city attorney read it to make sure he doesn't find anything.
sure.
No problem.
But other than beautiful.
Okay.
Any more
Anything else?
questions, y'all?
I'm good, that's, I just had
Department
one.
heads to see this now.
All right.
Sir?
Did I understand the chairman wanted the department heads to see it now? Okay.
Are you ready for me to share?
After, we need to decide these two things. So, I mean, I guess you can, but we still, before we,
Yeah, I
can't
can
really,
wait. I can wait.
yeah.
Let's just make
I mean, because we
decisions
haven't
and roll
passed it.
it.
Let's just see what Wynn says first. After
Sounds good.
Commissioner Wynn, then we can share.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next item, discussion led by Nicole Brown, interim city clerk treasurer, regarding amending the previous budget increase for the animal shelter's budget repair and maintenance general ledger line item 010-540-45001-000 from $3,550.54 to $4,863.36. Is this what we talked about? This is just,
Yeah, at the
The last
last council
meeting.
meeting, I gave you the figure of 3,550 and 54. But since it's coming from the general fund and not the capital improvements, that line was already negative. So I'm just asking for this amount to get her out of the negative.
okay, all right. Y'all have any questions on this one?
Tell me why she's negative again.
She was budgeted 2,000 and she was already over. The two items that come out of that line is the Cummings generator maintenance as well as pest control. And then when she started doing requisitions for bloopers and a few other items that were getting negative.
Okay, so she had a couple of things that wasn't in her budget happened, and I understand.
All right, any questions on, any more questions on number 3, y'all? Okay, number 4, discussion led by Nicole Brown, interim city clerk treasurer, regarding funding a budget increase of $15,138 for the animal shelter temporary pay general ledger line item. Paid from the general fund.
Yes, that was approved at the last council meeting, but we did not increase the temporary pay line. You approved it for 180 days, so I just did 26 weeks at 40 hours a week for $14.55. I don't know if she'll get 40 hours every week, but that'll be enough to cover it.
All right. Any questions on number 4, before we move on? Okay, number 5, discussion led by Nicole Brown, interim city clerk treasurer, to request approval for the extension of accounting consultant employment for administrative and financial related tasks at a rate of $50 per hour until June 30th, 2025. Previously approved until March 31st, funding from, general fund.
Yes,
So-
and we're just asking, that the council allow us to keep on our accounting consultant. She's gonna give you guys an update later on in the work session. And she's really helped us as far as, the audit and getting our bank accounts reconciled. But she has also, while doing that, found some other areas of improvement. I believe she sent you guys an email just updating you. And we would like to keep her on so that not only are our bank accounts reconciled and our audit is completed, but we're set up for success to keep on that way.
That's my thing is, as long as she's making headway on reconciling those bank accounts, I don't wanna take her out when she's in the middle of it. I would at least like to see all of those completed.
She also, as far as the court and the money that they bring in, legally, that's supposed to be separated.
Yeah.
And she's redoing those general ledger line items so that when we receive that money and so that when Amber pays it out, it's separated per state law. And I mean, that's just an example of one thing that she's found, so.
Yeah. My only thing is, and two, let's make sure we have it on the record, these things that she's finding that need to be fixed, like, these are things from like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
mean, we
these
were
are like-
without an accounting manager for, well over a year.
Yeah,
So,
Did we just hire one though?
yeah.
we did.
Okay.
Miss Anderson's actually in the audience, and I believe, I don't wanna speak for her, but I think that she would agree that having Melody stay on is critical.
Okay, yeah, but also we did hire one, and that's what, you know, we had Melody in place until we hired one, and the agreement was that once we hired one, we weren't gonna keep Melody on. But I do understand that we're in a critical situation to where there's some other things that need to be done, and that's why you're requesting to keep Melody. So what I would like to see is where we are now as far as what Melody is working on.
And
what
that, she's gonna
yeah.
update you on that this evening.
Yeah, and the timeline on when it's gonna be completed to where you guys can, you know, function without her.
Yeah, we
Also,
can get that
too,
together.
yeah, because also too, I know with the reconciling of the bank accounts, these have to be reconciled every month, though. These have to be monthly. So who's being trained to do this once Melody is gone? Who's gonna do that then?
It will be the new accounting manager. Right now, she's training up. The accounting manager supervises the accounting clerk. So I think that it's very important, in order for her to be able to supervise them, she has to know.
So what's the training or probationary period as far as the new accounting clerk? Because we don't wanna decide on, you know, something today and then we get to June 30th and, you know, we're still.
Well, it's not only directed at the accounting manager. She's putting things in place for everyone in the office. So, the probation period is 6 months, but Melody can put some rules and, things into place so that whoever comes into that position can pick up right where they left off.
Okay, so whatever, like, when we get the update, Nicole, just make sure we keep a list of everything you're updating us on today. So that way, when June 30th come, I would like to see how far we've grown.
Yeah,
Like where we
absolutely.
are versus where we are June the 30th, based on where we are today.
I
So
have
that,
one more question, sorry, may I ask about, okay, what are we paying her from? Are we paying her from the unused salaries still, or?
No, till March 31st, unused salaries was listed. We don't have any salaries. Well, we have Ms. Ford's, but I just put general fund because we did hire an accounting manager.
so, but there still should be some money in y'all's budget with the change up in, you know what I'm saying, with the change up in staffing that we have. So we don't have Portia anymore. You just got into a new role, so there should still be some money in your budget to pay for her.
Yeah, and we can change it to unused salaries.
Yeah, I think
That'd be better.
yeah, I don't think we need to pull it from the,
I got one more question, is that gonna, I know we have several that are fixing to retire, is that going to affect the retirement fund that goes into for those?
Well, it shouldn't because we have a vacancy now.
Okay.
And we were without one for over a year. I know that's not in this fiscal year, but
Okay.
and then too, Nicole, at the next meeting, just let us know, let's just get an update. Since we are paying for this and we had so many changes, we may just wanna get an update on that salary line to make sure we're gonna be able to cover this in y'all's department, if that makes sense. Any more questions on number 5?
Thank you, Tiffany.
No problem. Thank y'all for, well, making sure we don't miss anything. Is everybody good on 5? Okay, number 6, discussion regarding the review of potential adjustment of purchase orders issued against the executive and legislative departments, legal fees, expenses, general ledger line item. That was a mouthful.
That was about.
All right, so we got this, and I asked for this to be, on the agenda, and let me explain why. So, we've been in a couple of situations to where our city attorney, well, I'm just gonna say it, I mean, there's no sense in sugarcoat it. We were all at that hearing last week, like, everybody was there. And, it was really, really, rough on the side of the city, just to, you know, put it simply, we got our butts whooped, because our city attorney basically, couldn't represent us because he kept saying, you know, he wasn't involved, he wasn't there, and so on and so forth. And there was another attorney that was brought in on this case, but that person wasn't even, at the hearing to represent us. So, you know, Wynn is our city attorney, and everything does need to flow through him. I feel that it does need to flow through him. If we need to hire outside counsel, then that recommendation needs to come from our city attorney. Our city attorney. No matter what we're doing, he needs to be brought in on it, so we don't end up in a situation like we were in a couple of weeks ago, because that was embarrassing. And then I think too, in the last budget, because we had 2 budget work sessions last, year. I do remember when we, increased that line for legal fees, I remember pretty vividly that we said we were gonna increase this line, but everything needed to go through the city attorney first. Like, that's what we pay him for. We pay him, we keep him on a retainer, he's being paid to be here to represent us. If we need to hire, outside counsel, he needs to, give that recommendation.
So what does this take out of the mayor's hand in the mayor's office when, you know, it's brought to his attention that, you know, we're going into XYZ case and they seem to think that outside counsel is needed? So he goes to Wynn and Wynn says, no, it's not needed.
Well-
But the mayor's office says it is, then what do you do with that stalemate?
Well, first of all, nobody should go to Win, because if we end up in a situation to where.
I mean, the mayor
Yeah,
goes
but
to
if
Wynn.
we end up in a situation to where we need an attorney, our attorney should already be in the loop, be notified.
Right.
So that's
I
why,
agree.
when our attorney is working with whoever he's working with, the mayor, whoever he's working with, he needs to come to the council and say, hey, guys, this is out of my area of expertise, and I'm recommending that we hire this person. That's when we take the advice of our legal counsel and we do what he tells us to do. That's why we have a professional in place. Yeah, so we're not trying to stop, we're not saying we don't need any help. We know in some cases we are gonna need some help because we only can do so much, but I just feel that as our city attorney, we need to take recommendations from him as to hire outside counsel.
I feel the same way, because that will cut down on some of these attorney fees that we've had to pay in the past and that we've had to pay in the last 2 to 3 months.
And I've got
Well, I understand your point, Madam Chairman, and we did meet with Mr. Livingston a couple hours ago on this issue here, respecting that.
So, Cassie was up first. I don't know who you wanna let go. Cassie was up first.
I'll yield to her and see what she has. I think I know what she's gonna cover, and I'll answer now.
Okay.
So, one of the things that we had talked about with Wynn is, I know the main goal and question was to make sure that the communication pathways were good and that we had good, strong communication, everything was transparent between the offices. And we had suggested having weekly, bi-weekly meetings to give status updates on cases that are active with the city, to be able to know exactly what's going on, where things are happening. But we both talked about there were some issues. While I don't disagree with you that we go to Win with everything as far as the city goes, there are processes that are already in place. For instance, whenever we have an economic development issue, we have an attorney specifically, Brian Cash, that y'all have spoken with several times. He handles those situations. Win is not excluded from that. Brian gets the paperwork together, they discuss that paperwork, and it goes on from there. But from a purchase order standpoint, it's difficult to input requisitions, and a delay, I guess, would be the best way to describe it. If we have an instance that comes up, and then we have to wait on Mr. Livingston to approach you to authorize expenditures, then there's a delay in that process, which is pushing out economic development, it's pushing out planning commission things, it's pushing out several different issues. So from what we had discussed earlier, I believe that as far as the purchase order process, I don't see that there's an adjustment that needs to be made there. We need to adjust our communication with Win, which we've talked about.
So why can't we just, even if it's not, you're our legal counsel, we trust you, we hired you, that's why you're here.
Yes.
No matter what attorney we're dealing with, you're the one that represents the city. If we get in trouble, you're the person that's gonna show up with us in court. There still needs to be something in place, something from Win to say, this is what we need to do, just in, just saying it like.
He needs to send something to the city
Yeah.
clerk's office saying, go on and get this taken care of.
Yeah, I just think everything needs to, it just has to hit Wynn first, that's
I
all.
don't think it's, well, I guess what you're saying is, he doesn't have to approach us at a meeting, he can get advised of it, and say, hey, I think we need outside counsel, and he can shoot us all email and say, counsel, I think that's the best course of action right now is to seek outside counsel.
Yeah.
And let me know that.
Yeah, I think the verbiage in this resolution is kind of concerning. I think it needs to be worded differently to reflect that. Because number one, for example, it's like we're approving purchase orders, which falls under the executive branches.
Well, we have, there are open purchase orders now for legal counsel. And then there's some, yeah, you got some documentation in front of you as well, to see how much we've been spending on it, and it even shows, you know, who's approving it, and it's not Wynn.
But the key is to make sure that Gwen's not surprised.
Yeah.
If we have pre-existing arrangements with people like Brian Cash, that's great.
Yeah.
But Gwen should still be copied in and consulted to make sure that he knows what's going on in case he has to ask a question.
And Brian, as she said, Brian always copies me as soon as he sends anything out. So that's not an issue that's gonna slow down or any new issues he may be involved.
So Laura, what do you suggest the resolution? I know, because I mean, I get it, the wording, you know.
Yeah, it's just the verbiage. It just, there's, you know, it kind of sounds like that we must, you know, approve in a meeting all the purchase orders.
But we don't need open POs for attorneys. You see what I'm?
I don't know, I don't have a recommendation on how to reword it. That would be more of when, you know, I just feel like there's a little bit of a gray area with it.
So instead of no purchase orders for outside, without proving it by the council, it should say something along the lines of without authorization from the city attorney. And that means he can just email us whenever,
Yeah.
just
But
say.
it needs to be in writing. It does need to be in
Yeah,
writing.
just change that to the
And
city
it-
attorney
yeah.
instead of council.
But also too, just to be clear, it needs to be in writing and it can't be retroactive. You know, it has to be, Wynn said, this is cool on this day and that's the day it's executed.
For the expenses
Yeah,
incurred.
yes.
Right, so do it, just take the council out.
And just add city attorney.
Yeah, I like that.
That's
what I'm
fine,
saying,
but
yeah.
I just wanna make sure we're not in a situation to where,
You don't need a $30,000-$40,000 PO out there just floating for whenever you need it.
so let me ask this, so since we do have, Nicole, we do have some open POs open, right?
Yes.
So where's the list of the open POs that we have open, and
There's one for Spain and Gilliam, Alexander Hawk, excuse me, and billable hours for Wynn Livingston. Wynn has not billed us for anything other, he's just got his normal contract that he.
It's all in here.
I know, but which page is it?
Spade and Gilman is Brian Cash.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then there's a purchase order for Alexander Hyde, for $20,000.
And what is that for?
What's the,
Legal fees for personnel matters.
what's that date, this date range on that?
That's for the handbook that we're trying to get to, isn't it?
No, so.
The invoices are admitted to.
If I can speak to that, the purchase orders are one blanket amount that was approved by the council for the budget year. Wynn Livingston's billable hours, what was approved, the full 22,000. Alexander Hyde, the full 20,000 for the entire fiscal year.
So tell me how is that working? So are we just opening up these POs and then we just call people to make sure that they get the full amount that the council has approved?
No, ma'am. So the way that works is, for instance, I'll take and use billable hours with you, if that's okay. When Wynn sends us over an invoice, we put in one open PO at the first of the year for his full amount for 22,000. When the invoice comes in and it's only 1,000 or 1,400 or whatever the invoiced amount is, that's all that's deducted and paid out of that.
So let me ask, okay, so that goes to my next question. So how many of those do we have? Of course, Wynn needs to be open. We know we got to have Wynn's. But should there be open POs for other attorneys? So I mean, of course, we have to have Wynn's. You see,
There's one for Spain and Gilliam, which is
Brian
Brian
Cash.
Cash.
All right, we know that one.
There's
One
one
for Alexander
for
Hyde.
Alexander Hyde and one for Livingston. That's the only open POs.
And the $20,000 ones for the handbook that she was helping compile, right?
That's
The invoices
that's
in
a
there,
fiscal
Emily, is
year
what she was working
24.
Okay.
And it talks about comp time, the
Or
education
just looking
policy.
at the invoice, it's got the description of what it
Oh, I
is
see.
he was working on, or whoever was working on.
And by the way, Nicole, I know remembers a few times that I haven't explained what I did well enough. And anytime they ask me to explain it better, I have done it.
I know,
And I
but we
think
got
these
open
other
POs for
lawyers
other
do the
people
same
though,
thing.
yeah, we're making
Our
you.
concern is open POs, that's not you. That's our concern. We get your open PO.
Well, I mean, what happened, explain it to me, what happens with an open?
Once the purchase order, no, we're looking at the bill, but once the purchase order is done, then they're available to go seek service, because the purchase order is authorization to spend.
You got it now?
If I may, there was one other discussion that Lynn and I had earlier today. It's very difficult for an attorney to break down their invoices to one particular topic that would be one purchase order. That's the reason why we've done one blanket purchase order for those. So in other words, if he's dealing with, 4 or 5 things in 1 month and that was his invoice, then it just goes to pay for out of that one purchase order instead of having 5 for those individual things.
Right, well, with the city, obviously, we have a city attorney, we understand when, but like with Brian Cash, for example, he gets involved with CDA and incentives and all the stuff that we do there. Why would he have an open PO when he can just invoice us, then we create a PO based on the invoice?
Because I
Purchase orders have
can't,
to be done prior.
that's what it has to be prior. I can't do one after the fact.
I get it.
So-
I get what you're
That's
saying.
why we
Invoice
chose
us
to do this way.
for X amount, and we already have to add a PO.
Yeah, you have to have a PO before you can see. Yeah.
That makes
You
sense.
can't contact a vendor, you can't contact any of the services unless you have a purchase order. in
And
place.
so we have to have
Okay.
open purchase orders now.
But no, we don't, because that means whoever if we hire outside counsel, once our city attorney authorizes the outside counsel, then we open the purchase order. We shouldn't just have.
Keep it open.
We shouldn't just have purchase orders open throughout the year.
Open PO is not when you can spend it without authorization.
But look at these though, I mean, this is a lot.
That's the problem.
Yeah, this is the issue, this is a lot. I mean, look at this, this is every day.
So nobody should contact another council unless they go through.
Yeah, because I mean,
Because that's how you get in that shape right there.
But, or when you have this, when you got a $20,000 purchase order open, then of course you can just call and do what you wanna do, because you got $20,000 to spend, that's not
You've
how.
already got that.
Yeah, that's,
authorization.
The city attorney.
yes, yeah. So even if we have an open PO for Brian Cash, nobody should be, why aren't we contacting Wynn to deal with Brian Cash?
To be honest, I don't get contacted at all with Brian Cash.
But you see what I'm saying? We shouldn't have attorneys or retainers with $20,000 purchase.
But that's what I was trying to explain before. It's not we're going to use 20,000.
But we are using it.
We're using parts of it as needed. As far as, for instance, take Alexander Hyde is one of the ones that's open. So when authorizes that we need to be contacting Alexander Hyde, it's not gonna indicate that in her invoice, that Wynn has okayed items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to go towards it. In years past, we have had individual purchase orders per circumstance. And it was under the recommendation of the accounting office at that time to only have general file and to have one specific incident that was in litigation. And that, we've done it that way ever since.
I know,
It does make sense to have.
And the auditor.
It does make sense
Still
to
not
me,
an
yeah.
authorization to spend it. It just means that no additional people is required once the city.
yeah, but once you, okay.
Just as long as Wynn's involved in it.
And-
and
yeah.
okay.
Y'all not, but look, I hear what you're saying, but you're saying it's okay to have the open PO open, I get that, but this is a $20,000 open PO, and look at it.
But if
Designated for certain things, like, I mean.
Yeah, but it's things that the city attorney, he wasn't brought in on.
Yeah,
He
that's the
said, this
issue.
is
I
the
think going
issue,
forward,
yeah.
he has to be
These are
involved
things
in
he
it.
knew nothing about.
Right.
And he could have maybe solved some of that, if he
Yes,
wouldn't have had
and
to go to
save
that.
some of this money, that's what the issue is.
But the open PO has to be.
Yeah.
The open needs to be there in case they need students to come back to council.
Well, I still have an issue with it being $20,000. That's not.
Not really. No, it's not.
I mean, if somebody give me, open PO, I'm gonna use it.
If I can, just to kind of give you an idea. Spending
I see what
millions.
you're saying, but I
So the
understand.
audience will pick up on that.
Yeah, I
But you see what I'm,
I see what
I'm
you're
saying,
saying,
if
yes.
it's there, then we're thinking, okay, it's there, I can just call them anytime, they're gonna,
Tiffany feels like it's gonna get spent recklessly in a way, not recklessly, but it's
well,
gonna
you can
get.
say that, but I agree with that.
Not the city attorney.
Let me explain just a little bit. Alexander High, 20,000. We're 6 months into the fiscal year, almost, and we haven't even used not quite 5,000.
But we shouldn't be, but a lot of this, we shouldn't have to use, you see what I'm saying? If we loop in our city attorney, that's why we have him on retainer, that's why we pay him first. He needs to be at the top of the total.
So I think we can
But
change
if we
that with
adjust
this
our-
garbage adjustment on number one
Yeah.
in the resolution.
Okay, well, let's do that.
Take
So-
city council out and put city attorney in there,
Yes, I agree.
and everything else stays the same.
Okay, and also too, but hold on, cause on these,
And also, I guess we need to take purchase order out since the purchase orders are already issued. That verbiage.
And I know one of the talking points that we had with Wynn and I earlier was he wanted to change the verbiage to where he's not authorizing his own expenditures, because that wouldn't be appropriate. He would be
We have him
authorizing
on retainer, though, he
expenditures.
just invoices us for that every fiscal year, because he's these cities specific. But I think the purchase order needs to stay in there, because it is an open purchase order, it has to be made, whether it's open or closed.
Speaker man.
The purchase order has to be in there.
he didn't even cover it, well.
We didn't hear nothing of it.
All right, so what are we deciding as far as the verbiage?
Say, take.
I definitely think you just need to just put in there with the city attorney. Take council out. Let Wynn authorize that. Let Wynn needs to be authorizing everything, because that's what we pay him for. He's our city attorney, just like you said.
So what about hiring outside counsel?
I would definitely find a new employment lawyer.
But what I'm saying is, okay, so in this resolution, if we need outside counsel, it still needs to be a recommendation from the city attorney.
Right.
Okay.
Everything needs to be recommended from Wynn.
Specialist.
And I don't decide who y'all hire.
I know.
Apparently, we don't either.
But,
We just decide you.
I mean, I've supported both of them before, but I mean, that's not my job to say who's hired.
I know, but your job is to protect us, to make sure that the city is.
And our
taken
job
care
is
of.
to take care of taxpayers' money.
And you may be able to say it doesn't need to go to them, is the answer.
That's right.
You may be able to say it doesn't need to go to them, I can answer that.
Yeah, maybe it's something you can take care of.
All right, so we're gonna get the wording fixed and then it's gonna be on the next time?
We can, I got Victoria to make the changes now.
Okay.
But if you'd rather push this forward.
We
No.
should just make sure we looks it over and.
We just change it in one line.
I know.
Well, let's
give it
You can look at it when she brings it back in.
It's one, it's two
He
words.
looked at what I marked up.
Okay. All right, thanks, y'all. Thanks, Kathy. All right, number 7, discussion regarding the requirement for council approval prior to the issuance of purchase orders for legal services with the city attorney required to advise the city council when such services are needed. And that's what we just went over. All right, number 8, discussion regarding the.
Madam President, if I may, I believe that resolution at 7/2025, that's the one you're talking about.
Mhm.
And I believe here at the end you said, This resolution shall be in effect immediately upon its passage and approval.
They're rewriting and gonna get Wendy to take a look at it, so.
There's
just make
9
sure-
bullet points I needed you to look at
Yeah.
before making that decision.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
what we just, thank you, Mayor, so we're just gonna change the wording on it, make sure everybody agrees. We good with that, y'all? Alright. Number 8, discussion. Number 8, discussion regarding the approval of a 3-year lease renewal with Bobby Ray Green for a city-owned parcel of land located on Lake Louise Drive, described as lot number 1 of block 6, section B of the Avondale Mills subdivision, lease to renew effective May 1st, 2025, and end April 30th, 2028, with an option for an additional 3-year renewal if agreed upon by both parties. And I know we've done this a few times. How many times have we done
It's
this?
just continuous land up to years.
That's your 9th year going into this.
He makes it pretty.
He takes care of it, he keeps it.
So we're all in agreement with good on this one? All right. Is he here?
I did not see him on.
Okay. Number 9, discussion led by Melody Salters, accounting consultant, regarding the approval of the fiscal year 2024 Alabama annual reports. Melody, you're on. You doing all right tonight, Melody?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Did y'all receive a copy of the report in your packet?
Yes.
Okay. This is a report that I worked with, I did with Mike Rice and also with your Public Works Director, Reese. Basically, I did want to mention, if you don't know this, that on the Rebuild Alabama, which is a restricted gas tax source, that the outside auditors that are in here right now, they do compliance testing to make sure that there's a timeline, you have to spend this money, a certain percentage of this money, or we have to pay it back. So that was one of the things we had to look at, and I kind of came in at disadvantage because I hadn't really submerged myself with your projects, as I told President Nix today, so I had to kind of get up to speed with Nicole helped me on some of the resolutions that y'all passed related to where y'all wanted specific funds to come from. So in this report, if you look, it was for this fiscal year that's being audited, 10/1/23 to 9/30/24, and we actually had the bridge replacement on Walnut Road, and then you had a transportation plan, and then the bridge replacement on Walnut Road, as far as your fixed asset, was a little excess of $383,000. However, y'all received a $250,000 grant. So we can only report the net of the funds that were used, which were $107,000. And y'all see this report that where I'm referencing here. And so y'all had designated as rebuild, but the city had actually paid for it out of the capital. So we're in the process with Nicole of actually reimbursing the rebuild fund, or moving the money from the rebuild fund and reimbursing capital to reflect those expenditures that match this report. Because otherwise, your general ledger will look like y'all hadn't spent any money out of rebuild, which is the question the auditors had. And then your transportation plan had been approved as required in the rebuild, but we'd actually paid that out of the general fund. So I got with Nicole, and they're actually moving the money from rebuild, and we're moving the expense of that from the general fund and from capital to your rebuild fund, which is a separate fund, because it's required to be restricted, since it's restricted money.
And I don't know if I'm supposed to share this or not. Also, when I talked to Melody too, I know when we first got here, we was always told that we got all these different accounts, but everything had to be paid out of the general fund, and we just repay these funds back and so on and so forth. So Melody is working on getting everything set up to where if it comes out of that fund, we write a check from that fund. So that's gonna make accounting's life a whole lot easier too. So I was excited about that. So thank you for everything that you're doing, Melody. I know we're very fortunate to have you, and you are
Thank you for the
appreciated.
opportunity. So like I said, I did let Mike Rice, who works with you on your projects, and he actually didn't know that we had paid for the rebuild out of the capital. He thought we had paid it directly from rebuild. So moving forward, I think it's just an educational thing for the accounting staff. But the big thing about it was it's good that we had to do this report, and I realized that we've been working on it because the auditors had thought they thought we had not spent any money out of rebuild because the checking account had just been accumulating a balance, and so we were able to reclass that. So I'm kind of glad that sometimes I'm accused of sticking my nose in too much business, but I'm glad I got to do this report because we kind of figured that out in conjunction with the audit. Sorry. Any other questions?
No, we appreciate you for being nosy.
Okay, Nicole's the financial report later, sit back down and come back.
It's next.
It's next?
Yep.
Okay. I just prepared, when I used to be a finance director, I had things that I presented to my council, so Nicole just kind of wanted me to give you a brief overview, so I hope this is kind of, trying to get relevant information. We're just having 5 of y'all instead of like 11, we're having all last season, that's for the record. Okay, and because I am a CPA, and I always know what Aaron's gonna want me to say, your outside firm, I wanted to make sure too that I explained for the audience, you know, I am a CPA, but I'm working here for y'all as an in-house consultant, so I'm not auditing your financial statements like Aaron is, and actually, in the past, you know, the external auditors can help you more in your bookkeeping, but the accounting standards have gotten so strict that they can't audit their own work, so that's why a lot of cities will hire somebody like me to come in and help this side, because Aaron's got to stay independent for the audit, if that makes sense. So, but I do want to let you know that because we are working, as you know, what you in the earlier item, we're still working through the 9/30/24 audit. That the audited, the numbers here that I gave you for 24 are preliminary because Aaron's not through the audit. We're not through with the audit. But the 23 audit, you know, is complete, which we finished right after the bond deal. And so the fiscal year to date of January 31st to 25 that I'm giving you in 24, I wanted to know, everybody know that it is what your general ledger has on it. It's not been audited as the 23 is. But I did want to let y'all know, I thought specifically with sales tax, because when we went to the bond market, and also when we finished the 23 audit, we really only had 2 months of the increased sales tax in there, because I think y'all passed it on 8/1 to be effective with the 9/20 payment. So you had August and September collections, and so you realized increase a little bit in sales tax. But this gives you a lot more information, I think, as far as you see that when you only had 2 months of the increase in 23, you were at 11.9 million. But pre-audited for 24, we're showing 16 million, which is a right at 35% increase. And so, you know, that's, and then today, right here through January 31st, we're at 5.4 million. And, you know, and you kind of, I guess, you know, realize the right now the tree, I think you did pass salary upgrades and stuff in 24, which is taking effect, but then you are going to have bond payments that are starting, but you kind of got a free year, so to speak, because you got the 12-month increased sales tax. And even though you had the salary increase, you don't have the bond payment starting yet. And then, you know, usually these are the top 3 revenues for most cities, as the top expense is usually salaries, but property tax, again, you kind of look at the trend, you're up about 9% from 23 to 24, and so far through 1/31, they've only received 423,000, which was down from what January of last year was. But we called the county today, and I think that they just mailed a check today. But as you know, property tax is kind of different than sales tax. You mainly get that revenue in December, January, February. So you get the bulk of your sales tax by March, and then you kind of have to live on it for the rest of the year. You might get a little bit trickle in May or June when people get through their appeals process. But a lot of people need to understand that property tax, you kind of get all in one, where sales tax you're getting every month. And then business license is kind of the same way. You know, you had just a little drop between 23 and 24, but I think in talking to the mayor and working on the bond deal, y'all had a couple of businesses closed, but now y'all had like the wharf open and some other businesses. So hopefully we'll see that. You had like right at under a negative 0.81% drop between 23 and 24. But business license through January is 539,000, but they function kind of like property tax because they mail the renewals out. You know, business license renews on 12/31, not on a fiscal basis, and so they're going to be getting the bulk of their renewals in February for the February, March, and then kind of like that, you get your bulk of your business license in that 3 or 4 month period, and then you kind of have the new businesses or some of the delinquents come in.
And the renewal notices were targeted.
Do I know?
And the renewal notices were mailed out retarding, so people were not able to pay.
Yeah, I think they had a glitch on the software, it wasn't printed out, but just, I always kind of tell my council to keep that in mind, because if you're looking at your financial statements in December, January, February, it's like, wow, we've got a lot of surplus, because you've got a lot of property tax and business license money in, but you gotta live on that, so to speak, in the year, where your sales tax kind of comes in. Not really a 12 to 12 to 12, because some of your, like your December sales, you're gonna get a bump in January, because people shopping for Christmas. And then I've always seen August be it, people go back to school and, you know, even though you have the sales tax holiday, people putting their kids in dormitories, and we always saw an increase in August, which would have been September collection. So, but a good factor of what your, just a ballpark would be if you take that, the 5.4 million that you have, which is the 4 months of your, 4 months of your fiscal year. If you divide that by 4 and kind of extrapolate it by 12, you can kind of get a ballpark of where you're going to be, and it looks like, you know, y'all going to be a little bit more than what y'all were last year, just estimated at 16.2. But you can't do that dollar for dollar, because every month's not the same, but it's a good little indicator if you're trying to look at a budget. I used to always figure that as one of my factors. But I did want to point out also, and then I'll stop. I can talk about accounting all day. But you're actually audited net income, so to speak, which is your revenues over your expenditures. Okay, that means the net income that the city made, that you added to your fund balance or your equity in your city for 23 that was audited, was a little bit over $3 million. So, and that was really good news. And I talked with Aaron to make sure that we were on the same page with where we are in your ledger versus him. And while we still have accrual entries, or you want to know what we still had outstanding, we've still got entries that need to be made to clean the books up. We're looking realistic. We're looking. I hate to say for sure because I don't want to promise anything, but we're looking at that or more surplus for 9/30/24. A really good surplus. But you know, you also have to keep in mind, like I said, no bond payments have started yet. But it looks to be a very healthy surplus that y'all be putting in your bottom line. And going forward, you know, with your budget, you can use that surplus as a funding means for your budget. You just want to be careful that you don't do that every year. But especially if y'all decide to do a capital or a one-time, you know, thing that you've added $3 million to your savings, so to speak, that doesn't go away just because you're in a budget year. Does that make sense? But you know, you do have to. A lot of cities will utilize their fund balance, like say next year's budget. So basically, you would be budgeting more expenditures than revenue because you'd be using some of your fund balance. But you don't want to do that every year because obviously you'll deplete your savings. But a lot of times cities will decide to do that if one of your next projects or something that you want to do after your bond money's paid out. So I just like to kind of explain that because I'm an accounting nerd. But is there any questions on this?
That was very well put. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melody.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that was some good news.
Real good news. He's in good financial shape.
All right, so that's everything on our work session. We got the new document. All right, let's read over.
It was fine.
What do we take off?
Well, we don't have no copy of it. Huh?
Did we get it received?
Did y'all get Win one? Oh, let me pass that one back to you, Marty. Thanks, Nicole. You need the mirror.
You got my mirror?
Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you.
The four such services are. Okay, so that. Probably best, I feel much more comfortable with this version.
So what are we doing about, what are we deciding on the POs? Because in my mind, we're not opening the POs until Wynn authorizes
Yeah.
the attorney that is using.
Yeah, but the ones,
The standard ones are open, he just is not authorized to be used.
but then this one, the one that.
Because I know we don't do open POs in Sylacauga City School.
I know, but look, but I wanna make sure we're on the same page, so the ones that are open now, we have an understanding of why they're open,
Okay.
right? But in order to open a new PO, it needs to go before, Wynn needs to recommend that we move forward.
Or to spending money on her current PO.
To spend any money on those accounts, it's gotta go through him.
So Laura, how do you
I'm in.
feel about that?
I think that if there's, been a meeting between the executive branch and Wynn for healthy communication, so I don't see how this can go against that they've already discussed and established.
So we're all on the same page with this reading resolution, right?
Everything else.
Oh, so are we gonna do Earth in the work session or in the council?
Yes, you ready?
Hold on.
Wait a minute, we gotta wait on Ashley.
Hold on, I just wanna know where we're gonna do it before we end. Are we gonna do it during the mayor's report? You wanna do
Well,
it
yes, I
then?
got a couple of things I need to bring up with the public,
So
and I'll introduce them as well.
Okay, so we'll do it
Yeah.
during it, okay. Y'all good with that?
I have one more question though about this. Since it's already budgeted, do we need to, how is that gonna work?
That's what I was saying with any new ones. That's what I was saying with any new POs.
We'll have a record of it.
Because what Jane was saying, the one that's open now is because of the, what did you say it was, Jane?
Well, I said it was a handbook.
Yeah, the handbook.
Cassie says it comes from somewhere else.
As far as the purchase orders that are open right now, it's the budgeted funds that y'all have already approved in the budget.
I know it, but since y'all are saying it's for the handbook, that means, on the invoices, there shouldn't be anything else on those to be paid out of that PO unless it's for the handbook, right?
Handbook has a separate PO, it was for fiscal year 24 that y'all were. So that's in a different fiscal year.
I know it, but I'm just trying to make sense. Since we have the open PO, we have to say what the open PO is for, and then when we get the invoices, we don't need to see things that are outside of the agreement on the, PO, on the, invoice. You see what I'm saying?
So
Does that make
basically,
sense?
in my mind, the way it would work is we're discussing with Wynn sends an email and says, this matters.
How about this? Because this should work. I mean, this should be something. So if we have an open PO, there should be like a title on the PO. There should be a title on the PO, and each line item on that invoice should match what that PO is for, right?
What it is, like, win with the PO number, that same number for
To taxes,
each one.
when we receive invoices from a lawyer, it could be several different matters on that invoice.
But it still needs to
But the
relate to.
recommendation from our office would be to include what it is for on the purchase order. And you can include handbook development, like several things, but if it's not listed on that purchase order, that's when we would come to you and say, hey, there is an open purchase order for this, because fiscal year 25 personnel matters is very vague.
But you see what I'm saying? If there's an open PO and it says, the PO has a title on it, right? And it says why it's open. So there shouldn't be line items. So if I got an open PO, say I got an open PO for, I don't know, grass, I'm cutting grass. There shouldn't be a line item in there for, there shouldn't be a line item in there for me to,
Most of the purchase orders we issue are very specific.
but you see what I'm saying? They need to be specific.
And I
That's
think that
my
we
thing.
could include what services that lawyer is doing, even if it's several things,
Yeah.
in that one line item. That way, if we're invoiced for something that is not
Yeah,
already
because we need to know what we're
specifically-
paying for.
Yeah.
That make sense?
So in that respect, Brian Cash would only deal with economic development. That's the reason why that's what the title on that purchase order was.
And that's descriptive for what.
Alexander Hyde would only deal with personnel matters, not any other matters. So that's the reason why that was the title on the
But I-
purchase.
Compound listed in the invoices, there's education policy, there's handbook.
But yeah, but you see what I- yeah.
Also employee grievances, those things can be listed, because personnel matters is vague.
So you're saying list all those that are
I
not
mean,
current?
she doesn't have to list them by line, but she can list them on that purchase order so that we know.
What you're using
why
that order for.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So you would be editing the description of the purchase
To
order?
include everything in one.
I mean,
But there's also attorney-client privilege. I wonder if that could,
generalized topic wouldn't be
But we're
an
the
issue.
clients.
Yeah, we are the
We're the
client,
clients
yeah.
though. That's why we should be, good that information.
Right.
Yeah.
I
We're the
just
clients.
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to say like, Well, yeah, it does.
It's just kind of a,
It needs to be specific.
Yeah, and also, and it still needs to be approved by when, we don't, like Cassie, you can't go open a PO. You cannot go open a legal PO unless Wynn gave you written documentation saying that we need to do this and it's outside of his expertise. Does that make sense?
That's why I was saying, that's what I thought the change in the thing would be, is Wynn was gonna be sending over an email to say, yes, this matter, I'm authorizing it. So when you see the invoice, and you see all of those particular things that relate to that item, you know, yes, Wynn approved that.
Yeah, and I hate to say this too, but I mean, if there's some things on those invoices that doesn't match what that PO title is, there does need to be some disciplinary action.
And that's a problem.
Yeah, that's the thing.
like, for example, tomorrow, there's a civil service board meeting, and you have an employment attorney that's coming to help, represent the city. How does this affect that? I mean.
Those are things that should have been approved by the city attorney. So that's what this whole thing is about. Those are things that should have been approved by the city attorney. Because we have a city attorney in place, we paid him to represent the city, and he's the one that should be representing us. If he
Right, but in
can't-
that specific case scenario, say Wynn emails us and says, I agree, Alexander Hyde should be coming to town to represent the city.
I know.
We haven't done it, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we haven't been getting that email.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's to solve the problem.
Yeah.
All we're doing is adding a step for Wynn to confirm.
Yeah, so that way when something happens, we take Wayne to court because we took advice from our legal counsel.
That's right.
So that wouldn't require a description change on the purchase order.
That
It
was
would be
really
his
my
authorization,
recommendation.
that's what you do going on.
And then, okay, so what I'm getting at is if it's not in the description and it gets sent over to Wynn and says we need that, and Nicole says, well, it's not in the description, what do we do then? If Wynn says that service is justified, it's okay.
Wayne is allowed to amend the description.
Okay, that's
He's
all I
allowed
need.
to amend it. It's up to his discretion. Is that?
If it says personnel matters and it says she's coming to hear this, this, and this, Wynn says, yeah, that falls under personnel matters.
Yeah, but Wayne is also gonna know what those personnel matters
Correct.
are. He's gonna know. It's not just gonna be.
So we're
hey,
good,
yeah.
the resolution's
That's
good.
what I was
Yeah.
thinking, as long as the email with Wynn was in place.
Mary, you about to say something?
Oh, I'll just wait for this.
Oh. All right, so everybody, we're good with this resolution?
I hope.
All right. Look, this been on your schedule, how long?
It's done now.
All right, so where's my work session? Okay, so, we are gonna get ready to end the, work session, so the things that are gonna be on the, that are gonna be considered tonight is, the mayor's portion for the Earth presentation, action that is necessary to approve, resolution for what we just got through discussion, resolution number 7-2025. Action that is necessary to approve amending the previous budget to increase the things for the animal shelter. We talked about this at the last meeting. That's the next couple of items. We're gonna extend our accounting consultant until, June 30th.
You want to amend that to the new salaries?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And make sure I read that right, too, because I'm pretty sure on our sheet it says, and Nicole, you're gonna give us an update on y'all's budget the next time. All right, next item, action that is necessary to approve a 3-year, lease with, Bobby Green for the, Lake Louise property. Action that is necessary to approve the fiscal year, Alabama annual report. Then we got accounts payables and, payroll. That's it. Anything else now? So we're gonna go ahead and, end the, work session. What time is it?
6:03.
All right, so we're right on time. We're gonna end the work session.